Archaeologists make sudden discoveries while exploring in the wild. I don't want to go out, and there is a coach who has been revamped. Satisfied, he hurriedly came to the cave entrance to check. But he was shocked to find a restrained human being inside. And no matter how unexpected he was, the other party didn't have a good reaction. The professor seemed to realize something, and hurriedly called the dog to go home to the party. Say goodbye to your students and pack your clothes behind your back. He returned to the wild again. First, I laid out the cave entrance under the corner of the mountain to be safe, just in case. Then he took the dog and walked towards Shandong. But the stone at the entrance of Lingjin Cave, even if the dogs were beaten to death, would not come near Yu. The professor can only confirm that the man still has 4 holes. I went into the cave alone to find out what was going on, but I didn't start hiding yet. I found that the air in front of me started to fluctuate. There seems to be a powerful force that differentiates the cave from the outside world. The magical scene made the professor curious, so he continued walking into the cave without pretending to be private. The other party also started to slowly penetrate the hole, until the professor completely passes through the strong air. Cowboys are also fully back to normal activities. Professor Zhenzhuang's heart became pre-issued. The AI and the other party's identities are unknown and forceful. I can only watch the other party disappear at the foot of the hall not far away. The light outside the cave began to flash continuously. At the same time, there was also a good voice from the Dong student's office. The professor next to me was instantly stunned on the spot without rushing to spread the word, until the sound of human beings' remnant religion came from inside again. Even if I'm busy, I won't go back to the internet and run away. But it turns out that at this time, the outside of the gate is even more suspicious than the inside, because I only went in for a few minutes. Going outside has changed from noon to late at night. The only thing worth waking up to is that the car is still there. My car has been covered in weeds and cannot be started. At first, the professor thought someone was deliberately trying to mess with him. He understands that it's not as simple as it seems. I just want to get out of this orbital place quickly. I saw a strange moonlight on the way. The professor wanted to steal the other party's frequency for his own use. The discovery of blood essence medicine also took many years, but he clearly didn't see the 2 cars when the reporter came. Just when the professor seemed unable to understand this, a broken bag in the car sparked his idea, and this loser officially became his student. Because the only possibility now is that the big boss also enters the Shandong. But the new student comforted him, and he had no choice but to surrender and return to Shandong again. But I didn't think that this punishment would kill me. As early as the first time he passed through the air, Chang's picture. In fact, 3 days have passed outside. Professor Shirzong made everyone think that the other party was under threat. So I took 4 friends and went up the mountain to look for it. They didn't find the professor's car on the road, but the professor's family house was discovered from an abandoned area. From this, it seems that the reason why the professor went up the mountain alone, just to find the family of Shirzong who was here in the first period. And this also means that the professor must be nearby. But they came all the way but didn't even see any ghosts. Just when everyone felt frustrated about this, the fat boy in the object suddenly found a piece of waste at the back of the car. They found an empty cave, and all of a sudden, his face was cut off at the edge of the cave. Although I don't know if the professor is trapped underneath. 4 of them decided to go in and search. Tai-Zai chose to stay outside because of her warm nature. Chu didn't know that it was this seemingly wise behavior that killed him. The last 4 people in the group began to descend at the bottom using the climbing method. So they also regarded it as a natural phenomenon and didn't think much about it. Directly mutate your tone to the bottom of the suspended pressure. But just when Xiaomei and her beloved daughter Man were excitedly preparing to start the adventure. When the students came out, it came out that they were thinking about students. 2 of them were still consuming and discarding what was inside. Till the Doctor, the leaven of humanity, enjoys the whole cave. They realized it wasn't safe here, so Xiaomei decided to leave here and return to the surface. But I was afraid that the provincial office would suddenly break soon. Xiaomei's ankle was sprained because of this. Most of the people also hurt their palms because it was not so stable. The first thing to do is to understand the reason why the word province is broken. It only broke with a slight tug. At first, everyone thought that Fei-Zai was deliberately teasing them. Without saying a word, I picked up the radio and started to get along with each other. I couldn't contact you for a long time and didn't get any reply. Just when several people disagreed with one household, not far away, there was a sudden sound of objects falling. The heavy man, who was already mentally exhausted, was left in place one by one. Those who were the first to react did not dare to go it alone. I was busy trying to contact Fei-Zai again. What word did he miss? I can actually hear my own voice when I break the rules before practice. Thinking it was for a change, he tried again. Immediately afterwards, the wireless power transmission sent a cry for help. After hearing this, everyone immediately expressed difficulty in executing the plan. To find out what happened, the four Davids immediately decided to find Fatty. But when passing through an empty area, I noticed that the light from the hole above my head was flickering. It seems that the sun has been rising in the east and setting over the creek. A few people were serious. As for Kelly, she suddenly discovered that there was a hole coming out of the hole. If you look at stars, you must be a fat boy. When Kelly lowered her head to look for the other person in the next light, for example, Yin Lian is indeed Fatty's visual body. Everyone fell into grief. Everyone suspects that someone is taking advantage of him. You, sir, can't keep the secret from your wife and sister. The record of being rich and fat is always open. So a few people decided to find the answer from the direction of the road. It turns out that it wasn't long after the three of them arrived at the bottom of Dynamics. They spent 7 days in the outside world. During this period, he not only discovered several of the professor's cars, and the other party set up an Indian-level provincial station at the foot of the mountain. I also found a copy of Atomic Medieval Days on the exhaust flaps. The content is that the Queen of Spain has lost her throne and her husband. An expeditionary force was specially sent to find the cave where Bu Laoquan was located. However, most of them were killed or injured because of the shock of encountering 11 who was living in the cave. Even if someone escapes carefully, they will return empty-handed. Even disappeared into an army. And Fizai's major discoveries don't stop there. Of course, he dug out a Japanese textbook written by his professor's father on the bus. Learned the reason why the professor's parents disappeared. But there was still no news from the 4 people who went down. He had no choice but to accept the fact that Ji Yuan had died. But since Abbot's car is manual, he won't talk about it. It's unrealistic to travel home less than 100 kilometers away. Unless you can only hope for the professor's car. But just when he was planning to save money. But I found that the light at the opening of my mouth began to flash rapidly. Only then, under the eyes of those who value differences. If you don't listen to it like this, you'll fall from a height to the ground. The tragic shadow makes Zhongren Buren stop watching. Because it had only been a few hours since their relative's reporter had entered the cave on his own. But Faye had already spent several days there. Knowing all this, I must be inseparable from the ghost cave under my feet. It's official that I have to leave here as soon as possible. So he decided to get rid of Kelly, who had rebelled against him. But all the scenes that showed some passiveness were gone. Seeing the original forest from Tsongtsong, at this time it has almost become a deserted land. Even the air is filled with the smell of Shinto. Wei Xin's phone can't receive any signal here. Seeing the overwhelming impact, Shaching Daily quickly started to network on its side. Kelly can only seize the time to try it higher on the net. But just as he was searching for the signal with his wild faces intersecting, the sky seeks to restore the strange simplicity of this triangular shape. And the distance between the moon and the earth has also shortened a lot. Tell the 3 of them everything that happened above. But people don't believe Kelly's words at all. Kelly just went up and didn't get the vaccine and she already regretted it. Kelly could only show the direction of the shooting as evidence. Everyone also took out their own records and handed them to Kelly. Prove that he really means that there is no vaccine available. After comparison, all kinds of people are divided into great things. It can be inferred from this that the time response of animals must be faster than that of Dongwei. It is also a manifestation of the east sound of the sun absorbing dew. This would explain why there is a time difference between them and Fezai. I wonder how can any Shanxi persist in fighting with the delay for so long without stopping you? This means that none of the 3 people except Kelly can go out. Just when Zhongren was struggling with this. Obviously Fezai did not have Shuanghua unlimited power when turning green. But now the unlimited electricity is really broken. So everyone suspects that there is a reason for Fatty's death order. So I decided to read the rest of the way. Turns out that Fatty didn't die directly when he fell. Fatty immediately appealed to several people for help. But just when a few people came over, a pair of big feet suddenly appeared in front of the camera. Without saying a word, he picked up a stone and smashed Fatty to death. This shows that there must be other human beings in the dynamic selection. Amy was carefully checking the scene where Fatty had just moved, discovered that the direction the sunshine flashed was not something. It wasn't until he slowed down the video that the back-off started. It means that the Earth rotates around the sun. Combined with the number of hours after they entered the dynamic train in the calculation, thousands of years have passed since the outer cover at this time. Kelly, who wanted to crawl out and call for help, filed a lawsuit. An iron rod with a blue light suddenly penetrated the ground from the entrance of the cave. Then the texture began to extend under the surprised eyes of several people. Eventually, it turned into a kicker. A humanoid creature appears at the entrance of the cave. So for a while, several people were not sure whether the other party was human or not. And actually, after seeing them, he said something illegal. Even though he was unanimous, he suddenly appeared and attacked from behind. But the advantages brought by such body shape and the blessing of high technology. He doesn't even have the power to change the border, but he only cares about making trouble on the ground. He actually set his sights on Dwayne Jirun again. To be cautious, everyone and others decided to run away first. But thinking about it, I didn't realize that the real danger lies in disturbing the students. They were lucky enough to find an empty area. I found the sentence above, the main hall on the ground. But I've seen every glance of the professor's family in uniform. At the beginning of the call, the other party was the professor's mother who had been there for 4 years. And his father's body is also lying not far away, when only 1 or 2 people die, but unexpectedly saw a group of eyes not far away. Zheng Xiaogua, the equipment worn by a cowboy. Yao Wei instantly realized that it was probably this group of people who killed Fatty. So King Ji called his lover in a clear voice to run away on the other side. But he was discovered on the spot by one of the savages. It's so great that they can't outrun the savages. Nowadays, only frontal battles can lead to first-line upgrades. So the superiors decided to leave the eye care girl alone. But within 2 moves, he was knocked unconscious by the savage team. One of them didn't even bother to step forward to make up for it and killed the big one. Kelly and the other 3 took this opportunity to hide in the tunnel and escape. Kelly decided to go back to where she was and look for a big job. But I found that the other party had an island on the ground with his head covered with writing. The previous giant also came nearby at this time. Kelly Zhenhuang's heart suddenly rose to her throat. Fortunately, the other party's target is not them. The giant just took a little water from the water jar nearby. Maybe he was infected by Kelly's crying. The executive half suddenly stopped to make up for it. First, he threw Kelly, who was desperately trying to block him, to one point. Then he directly put the big body's body into the pool and put it into his robe. Kelly, who didn't know what he meant, thought the other party was going to hurt away. Fortunately, Kelly can only be revived with the Prime Minister who represents Highness. The savages from before came to the pool first, holding a torch to threaten others when they leave the water. Directly transform into a multi-power player and knock the savage away. At the same time, everyone is also waking up after 7.5 seasons. But he didn't know that what he saw actually saved his life. The fleet is positioning itself with the savages. Everyone originally wanted to wait for their 200 words of hurt and take the opportunity to leave. Don't be surprised by the maintenance worker who didn't pay attention. Yin Zhaoban was accidentally torn off by a savage, and he can't breathe through earthly air. Unexpectedly, the ship's own life will not be lost soon. Escape directly from the black technology and push the 2 savages to the ground. But at the same time, he fell to the ground because of the lack of samples. Everyone finally realized that he was actually helping them. For example, in the early stage of Jibang, the side summons the land to the opponent. But at this time, the oxygen in the clothes had already leaked out. Even if I put on a mask, I can't move back. Kelly can only take advantage of the opportunity before the other party dies. Quickly asked the outside world what era it is now. He actually listened and gave a direct answer. Instead, he used his energy to scan the faces of the 4 people. Searched out all the news about them in history. However, there were unexpected reports released by the families of several people regarding their wish-seeking activities. There is no information about the age in it. But at this time, I was already done waiting to cry. I can only use up my last bit of history to Project Kelly's history. It turned out to be from 1,000 years after their disappearance. Due to environmental changes on the Earth, the yang content in the air has dropped sharply. Animals begin uncontrollable camera killings. Humanity can continue to invert for the sake of race. Can only pass a triangular ship traveling faster than light speed. Until the Earth's ecology recovers on its own, and then return to the family. A few people have already broken up with the existing human system. Even if I return to the ground, I can't go back to my previous life. After understanding this, Chong suddenly felt lonely and desperate. Professor Dewey discovered the backpack along the way. Thinking about the time when I first entered the dynamic realm, he immediately decided to find the professor first and discuss the next plan. After everyone got the teacher's pistol from the cowboy's corpse, only then did I go deeper into dynamics. Everyone, please find some sunshine on the ground. It looks too good, probably because the professor was worried about getting lost. So I looked in the direction of the Yingguang stick. Don't go behind the camera only to find a small eye. He was holding a little skinny little thing and moving it carefully towards his mother who was dying. After 4 weeks in the Great Hall, I realized that the surrounding hall was filled with corpses of savages. Apparently it was the result of a fight between cowboys and savages. There is a high probability that the professor is still alive, so everyone chose to ignore the little girl in front of them and continued to search online. Sure enough, I found an incompetent professor at the Tax Dojo Hall. The professor is still stuck in front of Ding. Everyone made a shocking discovery after submitting the product. Between the tax road at your feet and the cave inside, there is also a savage inside who is chasing a little girl. The professor said that the little girl is his sister, and the time in the cave in front of them flows slower than the time under their feet. So from the outside, it looks like a forbidden scene inside. Inside is actually a Lu Tian's Pabushao. A group of medieval soldiers are fighting the barbarians, and this is probably the army that the Queen of Spain disappeared from, although hundreds of years have passed. But the fighting inside has just begun. It can be seen that the flow of time inside has slowed down to an indescribable degree. The great minister wanted to go in, but the professor's sister appeared. Because once he enters this small position, when he comes out again, everyone will probably be separated from each other. Now the only thing we can do is please leave this cave as soon as possible. After hearing this, everyone wanted to leave with the professor, but the opponent's chest has already been pierced by long hairs. But people gradually woke up under the little girl's divine touch. No one could leave alive at that time, so the professor could only ask for the first shot from the boss. Decided to use a cautious life to buy them time to escape. So the extremely blind net cloth was placed next to the cave where Lao Quan was. The professor builds the first shot of the national stagnation period and outputs it in one shot. But events are blurred due to excessive blood loss. The professor's judicial bullet undoubtedly hits. I can only remind David loudly to run. And he hurriedly followed the broken path he came from and returned to the previous exit. But I found that the white light that was on sale before had turned into. But when Shenzi Yuguan was watching, they had no time to think. We can only quickly use the giant's black technology ladder to climb up. The mouth has been covered by the unknown liquid emitting light, and below stood a group of savages who Shidandan. I can only force myself to put my hands into the water, but suddenly some unknown creature got into it. It was difficult to increase the supervision and discharge force inside, and finally returned to the moving port again. But just when David caught Pai Li, someone else's hand was attracted by the glowing button on the kick. Halfway down, David and the three of them changed into the support of the surveillance drama and began to grind down. As a result, the exhaust force was completely pulled closer to the water loss, which is a strange thing. Crown hand in water not only does not harm the platoon force, instead he thoughtfully put on an oxygen mask for him. From his perspective, the three Davids. The three of them separated into soul states. It has been firmly caught in the air by the virgin hand. Then I no longer feel that I am surprised. The sexy guy underneath also thinks that after looking at it, there are one head and two big ones. Then 4 more virgins came into the cave. I just ignored it and thought I was starting to poke holes in the guidance. Faye suddenly woke up in a pool of water. And the earth outside the window is getting further and further away from me. Until suddenly there was a fight over the province. Only then did I realize that there were 2 extremely tall humans standing at the door. Their hands don't look like humans anymore. Just when the other party is fat, what is it? The professor suddenly emerged from the pool again. The 3 Davids also came here wearing brand new uniforms. Tong Tong is resurrected and is back. They just didn't know when they learned that they had committed suicide. How would you react if you were older than you? As for the things inside and outside the ship, it is also the result of human evolution over thousands of years. It's humanity's new Canadian dollar.